Hello and welcome back to the Cine Skinny, the film podcast from the people behind the Skinny magazine. As you can probably tell, your usual host Peter Simpson isn't around today. He's off on holiday, so instead you have me, Jimmy Dunn. So apologies in advance, but don't worry, we're almost the full team without Peter. So I'm joined by Annie Pete Ohs and Ellie Robertson. Hi guys.
Hello.
How the hell are you doing?
Good. How
Amazing.
are you?
Pretty good, yeah.
Great.
I think we've got a fun show for everyone this week. So we got a couple of interesting indie titles that played back at Glasgow Film Festival back in March, and they're coming to the cinemas over the next couple of weeks. And those films are the kind of anti-romance film Erupcja, which is probably most famous for starring the very busy actor at the moment, Charlie XCX. And we're also looking at the new Scottish comedy The Fall of Sir Douglas Weatherford, which stars probably Scotland's most busy actor, I would say, Peter Mullan. But before we get into all that, what has everyone been watching? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I found online a fan edit of Star Wars, like a fan cut of Star Wars. It was called the Despecialised version. So basically the original Star Wars trilogy, which was in the 70s, 80s, was all very it was all Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas, loads of little puppet guys and stuff. And then when the new ones started coming out in the 90s, he re-released them having CGI filled in all of the little creatures and stuff like that. And it's now impossible to actually find a copy that is the original. I think that next year they're talking about theatrically releasing an original cut. And it's because Lucas has this whole philosophy that Star Wars is his to sort of tamper with as much as he likes. And it's that's, a conversation you may or may not agree with, but I found it really, really interesting because there was just so many little weird puppets that have now been kind of completely replaced. Because again, I grew up on Star Wars, but it would have probably been those CGI re-releases that were the ones that I saw. So it's just so many little things. There's a film that I've talked about a couple times on the podcast, which I was a big fan of, called Mad God. It was at the Edinburgh Film Festival a few years ago. It's a claymation sort of horror apocalypse thing, and it took Phil Tippett, the director, 30 years to make. And he was a puppeteer on Star Wars, so he did the claymation chess table, which you still see if you watch Star Wars now. You'll still see the bit where they accidentally the Chewie and C-3PO or something like that are playing a claymation. And it's very Ray Harryhausen. But then he also did the little four-legged walking robots from Empire Strikes Back. And he did all of the kind of puppets in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. So it was just really fun for me and my partner to watch this and kind of appreciate his work, which has now kind of just been sort of erased. I think that I can't quite remember if Jabba the Hutt is CGI.
There's a new scene with Han Solo who he meets Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
But I think it's in the first one.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a really weird one because they essentially filmed that back in 1977 or whenever Star Wars first came out, expecting to put in a big slug, but then finding that it was too hard afterwards. So they just got rid of the scene altogether. But then in the 90s, they could put it back in with the new CGI Jabba the Hutt.
But then the issue is in the third film, Jabba the Hutt's huge. He's the size of a house.
Yeah.
But in this one, he's just the size of a man. So it's you have to imagine that Jabba's just been eating ice cream
Been
between the first film and the third one.
He's been eating those weird little rats that he eats. He has a shrimp cocktail of weird alien rats. But the Jabba the Hutt puppet, I think that's one that does stay the same no matter what version. In Return of the Jedi, it's always a huge Jabba the Hutt puppet that's being operated by three guys.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of mind-blowing how good it is to think that this is just a giant animatronic and it's huge. It's probably one of the biggest operated puppets in cinema history. But at the same time, all of the other stuff, all of the weird little musicians and dancers in that scene, they've been completely re-edited.
I'm pretty sure that's the most egregious one. It's the bar where they do the big performance. That's all been changed.
I think they even changed the song. So in the 70s, it's a weird little bleep bloop kind of alien-esque song, and then in the 90s it's this big jazz showstopper, which is very Phantom Menace-y, and it feels weird. And it's if both versions exist, I think that's cool, and there's at least a kind of thing that you can say there about Lucas made a version that was more 90s, more CGI, but it's the fact that it's hard to access the original cut is kind of I think a bit of a discredit to all of the original artists.
I know Spielberg has went back, because he did that as well. He went and redid E.T. but took out all the guns, so that there's
Yeah.
All these scenes of like the guys who are chasing the alien just waving around walkie-talkies, pointing them at the kids. It just doesn't make any sense. But like, I think he said that was stupid. I'm not going to do that. I don't know why George Lucas is insisting on
I think
sticking
there
with
was
it.
something I was reading recently about like the whole industry of director's cuts and how like directors don't actually like doing a director's cut, but especially after Blade Runner, which was like a weird film that Ridley Scott really wanted to redo, and like there's all these different versions of it, that now it's almost an expected thing that a director will like make a film, and then like if it's successful, Hollywood will kind of like push them into doing a recut, a longer director's cut for the superfans, and they're like, I don't like it. Like most of them, I think they just want the thing to be out, and then once you have a film that's out, that's a meaningful way for an artist to know when they are done with something. And I think that it gets a little bit messier when like they can just keep going back and re-releasing it.
Or at least like, you have the choice to see, if you want to see the fancy new one, go for it. But like, why not?
Yeah.
Why stop people watching the original?
But if next year there comes out a like Star Wars print that's like the original trilogy with all of the original puppets, like go and see it, because it's like a very different experience. Loads of scenes that just like you would not expect, and also just like loads of cool craftsmanship.
You're here. Annie, what are you watching?
I watched Titanic. Speaking of a big spectacle, I saw Titanic when I was like a kid, like an early teenager, and I found it so deeply and profoundly upsetting that I've never seen it again until my birthday. I was like, you know what we need. It's really good. Did you guys know it's really good?
I also feel like I haven't really seen Titanic since I was a kid. I think I have maybe seen it once as an adult and like thought it was really, really good. I think I was mostly fixated on like, wow, I had not really registered how hot Leonardo DiCaprio was.
Oof. Yeah. Yes.
And this is like a very hot role for him.
He's so sexy in it. But in like quite an unbelievable, like no man has ever been that nice.
But he's
like,
also super charming. He's not had that boyish kind of charm in a while.
A really long time. Yeah, no, it's such a good role for him. But I think in my head, it was not quite like The Notebook. I'm not saying it's like The Notebook, but I thought it was a bit more like on that romancy sort of melodrama, lovers torn apart sort of note, and then a ship sinks. I thought that was kind of the vibe of it, whereas it's actually a horror film, really. Like, I could really, really see the lineage between Aliens and this film, and then also Avatar, in the way that he shoots, like the sinking of the Titanic is like shot like a horror and is like so disturbing and upsetting, and he really like zones in on that sort of like the human loss, but in the way that you do in a horror film, where it's like not only the grief of like people dying, but the really like disturbing nature of like how they're dying. Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I probably will watch it again sooner than 20 years, but yeah, it was like quite intense, so I don't know if I would. Like, I spent most of the second half of the film being like, oh my fucking god.
I do
Oh god.
always forget about the opening scene being the little like deep sea submersible thing, because James Cameron is so into
and apparently he went there 12 times. He's been to the Titanic 12 times.
That's wild.
I haven't been to like France 12 times.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I have a degree in French. Like, it's crazy. That was all like footage that he had shot.
But you're not making France the movie.
No, I'm not.
No,
That's true. Thank you.
You've probably got a bit more.
Yeah. Has anyone seen the one I've not seen that I've always wanted to see from James Cameron is it called The Abyss?
Oh yeah.
Which is his other one where it's a deep sea horror thing where it's like a deep sea research facility, and there's this, it's like, again, like kind of early CGI experimentation where it's like a villain that's made out of like water, so it's like a big liquid.
He loves the void, this man.
Is what's it called, the trench that's the deepest part of
the piss.
Like the Mariana Trench.
So it's set within the Mariana Trench, and they're trying to get deeper than anyone's ever been, but it turns out that down in the deep there are some sort of strange creatures.
Is this not the plot of Pacific Rim?
No. The plot of Pacific Rim is there's giant monsters.
That come from the trench.
Yeah, but there's no. This is like the prequel to that.
Okay.
That's how it started. It was all James Cameron's fault.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's Pacific Rim and then Pacific Rims. Okay.
Yeah, I see.
He loves he's obsessed with water and like mechanical things
Yes.
breaking down,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, it was kind of fascinating. Yeah, like obviously everyone like makes fun of the whole like, oh, Avatar is just Titanic, but like but it was like, oh, I see that this is a person that is very obsessed with like technology and what happens when technology meets like the sublime terror of like nature and the enormity of nature, and that seems to be what all of his films are. Well, I say all, the ones that I've seen, what they are about to some extent. And I thought, apart from the Billie Eilish documentary, which that I'm less certain how it fits into the canon.
You don't know.
I don't know.
There could
I've
be
not
a
seen it
horrible
yet.
disaster
It
at
could
the end.
be. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then otherwise, I've been watching. I got a new TV that is bigger than my old TV. And now I feel like I have a cinema at home, even though it's actually not that big. And I've been watching... Well, I've been rewatching New Girl, I'll be honest with you. But I've also been watching Hacks, which is good.
Yeah.
I like
I want to have another go at Hacks, because I watched like the first couple episodes, and then I just felt like it was quite slow.
It is slow.
But then, like, you know, this was around the time that like season 3 was coming out and winning a bunch of Emmys. And I was like, everyone seems to really love this, and the bits that I've seen seem great. So I think I need to try a bit harder.
Yeah, it is. It's not a bingey show. Like, I will only watch like an episode or two at a time, and then I will go and binge something else. Like, it doesn't feel, it's not that like sugar rush.
Yeah.
But I think that probably means that it's good.
Yeah.
That's probably actually in its favor. Yeah, I would recommend it. I really like it. And then she is going to be, is it Hannah Einbinder?
Yeah, I think.
She's going to be in the new Jane Schoenbrunn that's coming out soon, I want to say.
I think so. I think in August. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's also exciting.
Which will be good, yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been watching, Jamie?
I watched Obsession. Have you seen that? The new kind of Blumhouse film?
Yeah, I've not seen it,
Blumhouse
but
film?
I've heard good things.
I loved it. Like, I thought it was really good. It's like by a guy who's like 26 called Curry Barker, who's like, I think he's started in YouTube and he's maybe made one really low budget film. So this is like his kind of breakthrough. It's got a very familiar premise. It's like basically the twist in the old kind of monkey paw story, you know, where the moral being, you know, be careful what you wish for. Because this is about a nerdy guy who is kind of obsessed with the cool girl at work called Nikki, but he can't build up the courage to ask her out because he's a coward. So he makes a wish on this thing called a one wish willow, which is like a Chinsky kind of like novelty gift from like a mystic store. So he doesn't actually think it's going to work, but it turns out it does. He thinks it's just a piece of junk, but it turns out it actually has some sort of magical power, and she instantly becomes interested in him, and he takes full advantage of it. So the film is really well done. It's like a really good horror, but also it digs into that kind of thorny question of consent, of like, you know, just this creepy guy who basically makes a woman his like object, and the kind of consequences of that. It's really creepy, really unsettling. The performances are great. Like, I think that particularly, is it Indy Navarrete who plays Nikki? She's so good. She's like, because part of it is it's got that little Get Out thing where she's kind of trapped in the body. Like the real kind of the soul of Nikki does not want this to happen. So like every so often she'll kind of jump out and like it makes clear that she's appalled at the situation that she's going out with this guy. But
that's really grim.
That sounds so
it is really
sprawling.
grim. It's really unsettling, but it's also, let's just say, he gets his comeuppance.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
it's like, it's very satisfying the way it all plays out. I found it really enjoyable. A real kind of
A lot of YouTubers kind of like moving into film quite
'cause
successfully, it seems.
the Backrooms, I believe, is also like a new
I wanted
up
to
and
ask,
comer.
has anyone seen it?
Not yet, no.
I kind of want to, but
I kind of want to, but I'm also like, how scary is it?
I don't know how scary it is. I'm kind of more worried about how mid it would be.
Yeah.
Just because, like, that's an interesting one where it's like, I don't know about Obsession, but this is adapted from a YouTube video.
It's a creepypasta.
Yeah, like, it's like an internet
Yeah.
urban legend thing, but it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, like what, a 5-10 minute video about, like, just kind of like a liminal space and how weird that would be and how strange it would be to be in. And I just don't know that it has the legs to make a movie. Like, I'm happy to be proven wrong. But also, Iron Lung was something that came out a couple months ago that I didn't see, that was like by a former YouTuber. That's like a horror, like claustrophobic horror thing that people seem to really, really like.
God, they love their horrors.
Yeah.
The Backrooms one reminds me of, did you guys ever have that screensaver on Windows where it was like the brick walls and then you would go through the brick walls and then you hit an object and the object would do something? Like sometimes it'll turn you upside down, or sometimes...
I do not remember this.
Oh, hang on, I'll find it for you.
I'm aware of
This doesn't really work for radio. So.
No, I know. I'm going to find it for you specifically.
Okay. Can we say that's what we're watching complete?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we're going on to Erupcja. So Erupcja follows Bethany and Rob, who are a couple on a romantic getaway in Warsaw. But instead of following the romantic itinerary that Rob has meticulously planned, Bethany sneaks off to hang out with Nell, who's an old friend she met when she visited years ago. And they immediately hit it off together and created this kind of quite intense friendship. But the question is the bond they have great chemistry, or is there something more profound pulling them together? Charlie XCX plays Bethany, Leah Gora plays Nell, and Will Madden plays poor put upon Rob. And I believe you spoke to Pete Ohs, who's the director of this recently. How was he, and how was the film?
He was really nice, actually. I really, really liked him. He was saying that this was partly inspired by, he went to Warsaw I think it was Warsaw. It was, to a film festival, which was confusingly called the American Film Festival, because apparently that's what they do. And then he met a woman there who he fell in love with, and then moved back after a long distance relationship, and was just I thought it was such a romantic place. It's I really like this. I really, really vibe with this. I think it's a flawed film. I can see all of the ways that it is quite incomplete, but it's one of those films that you're this is the kind of cinema that we should be making. It's really trying to do something, even if it doesn't always succeed, or it's just doing a little bit of a mood piece. I don't know, it's fun how it's doing it. So it follows this couple that go on holiday to Warsaw. The guy wants to propose, and the woman is freaked out by it, and then she finds that she revisits a friend because a volcano explodes while they're in Warsaw, and apparently every time a volcano explodes, this friend and her, who have this very intense queer relationship, and then they don't talk the rest of the time, they kind of find each other, and it's all very the power of coincidence, the power of fate, the universe bringing us together. It's all very platonic, romantic, but also maybe actually romantic. And it's a very, very good film about being aimless in that kind of young person, not really knowing what you want, not really understanding how the world works, and only understanding it through these grand ideas of narrative. So this idea of romance or things being fated, and then finding that life doesn't quite match up to that. And it does a very good job of kind of showing those two experiences of life coexisting at the same time, and how impossible it is for people. All 3 or 4, I think the 3 main characters and Pete Ohs are all credited as screenwriters, because apparently the way this film was made... Sorry, there's someone doing a loud building work outside. Apparently the way that this film was made was... Sorry. It's so distracting. Apparently the way this film was made, and the way that he makes all of his films, is he has a vague idea, and apparently with this one it was just what if 2 people go to Warsaw? And then they kind of start working out the film as they go. And so a lot of the dialogue is improvised, the characterization is improvised. They're writing it every morning, the scenes they're going to film. It's filmed in chronological order as well. And there's something very organic and natural about the way that plays out, even though that it is quite a quote-unquote stylized film. There are all of these shots of volcanoes erupting, and also these color blocky, it's quite Agnes Varda in that way, these color blocky fades in and out, and so it definitely feels quite artsy, but it also has this naturalism because of the way that it's been written and the way that it's been made. I thought it was really charming. I think she's very compelling in many ways, so I'm just very
she being
Charlie XCX. Yeah. So I'm extremely on board with her. I think you guys were saying that, she just plays herself. Were you saying that on mic or off mic?
I was saying that off mic a little bit.
Okay, yeah. It was interesting because he was saying that the conversation they had when they were coming up with her character of Bethan is, what if it was very unlike Charlie XCX's persona, that everyone thinks that she's this very brash, bitchy girl, and what if they just had someone that was like quite quiet and shy and sweet. But I think I felt a little bit like you, where it was like, but she's still Charlie XCX. Like when you have someone that beautiful and charming wandering around and also treating her boyfriend like a dick. There's only so many
She also
ways
got
this could play
she's
out.
very bratty, you know, she's got the
Yeah,
glasses
she
on, she's
is.
like,
Yeah.
she's hungover all the time.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was really lovely. Also, another thing he said in the interview that I thought, I don't know, I found just really compelling. He was like, yeah, I think film should be experienced kind of like we experience music and other art forms, where this is a film that you can like sit down and pay attention to and like watch like a film, but it's also a film that would be okay if people put on in the background. And obviously me being me, I was like, my guy, you're speaking my language. But I really love that as an idea of like, what if we also shift the way that like, what do you call it? Like the flow, what is that called? Like the space, collapsing the space between like film as cinema and then like moving image work, which we think of as like a bit more experiential and we can see little bits of and we don't need to see in that like narrative way. I thought that was also really interesting. Yeah, I like hot people in urban environments. I thought it was nice.
Agreed. Yeah. I liked it for very much the same reason. I think organic is a great word for it because like it just sort of feels good to be in Warsaw, and you do feel like you're really like just naturally kind of, it doesn't feel like they kind of like linger on the cityscape or anything like that, but you do still sort of feel like you're soaking in some of the vibe of it. I kind of went in wondering what Charlie XX was going to be like, because like you say, she's been in quite a few films this year, but I've not seen any of them, so I was like, what is she like as an actor? Like, I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to try my best to ignore the fact that this is international pop star Charlie XCX and just see the performance for what it is. And you know, I think that there is like, she's definitely filmed in a different way than she usually is. She's like just sitting on the bus, scrolling on her phone, waiting on a train, something like that, wearing like a big baggy jumper and like bike shorts. But then I think the first line that she says is when they get to the Airbnb and they try and like use the buzzer or whatever, it's like, it's not working. And I'm like, diva, queen, love this bitch. Happy Pride Month. But then I kind of, when I realised, they do, that the actors themselves have kind of written their own parts, that I actually viewed it completely differently, of like, this isn't really Charlie XX trying to stand out from like the context of her wider work, but actually it almost felt like an extension of some of the themes that she writes about in her discography. And in Brat, it is confusing sometimes to be a girl. Everything is romantic, you know? I think that's really interesting, and I actually like did really appreciate that. Like, I think that there was something, like, it felt like they were kind of coming up with new ways to play with her image, like this one sort of long monologue where she is like very stoically reciting Byron's poetry on dingy little flat floor, and it's like, that's so Charlie XCX, but in a way that we wouldn't really be able to experience through her music or her music videos. So I thought that she was great in it, and I actually really, really like appreciated it once I kind of like keyed into what I think this film was for her. I would say that I think it didn't necessarily leave a lot of space for the other characters to feel as fully fledged. Like, I don't know, that this sort of like, I found myself wondering as she sort of ditches her boyfriend to go on this sort of mad night out, and it's kind of compared as this volcano erupting, and there's these beautiful shots of volcanic activity to support this metaphor. But I'm like, is this really as like big and sort of primal as like, as it's making it out to be? Like, is the conflict of this film really this kind of like indecision between, would you rather go on a night out with Jeremy O'Harris, who's a hot painter, and all of his friends stay up late doing drugs, or would you rather be with this incredibly boring boyfriend who seems to have no personality or identity outside of the relationship? Because like, yeah, like who would? But then I kind of slowly came around on it, and I actually like Rob way more, and I think that he offers a really important perspective when they're talking in that very emphatic way about what's happening in this film. You know, they say like, oh, whenever there's a volcano, we would ditch our jobs or we would cheat on our boyfriends, and no matter what happened, no matter what consequences we had to face, we knew that because that volcano erupted that we were special. And then Rob's just like, so anytime a volcano erupts, you just escape, you're not accountable for your actions. And like, yeah, like no one really pushes back against that. There's no real like deepening of that point, and it kind of is like he's just there to kind of like bring us back to reality in a way that I really appreciate. So I really enjoyed it, and I found it quite funny as well. There's this narration, this like Polish narration that is just there to undercut, to make the characters look slightly more embarrassing. So it's like, you know, I don't know, what is it, like Claude liked Nell because he found her name easy to pronounce. Like, that's it. And I just think, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe like once I realized that these are, like, Charlie XCX is just being a pop star, maybe they could have gotten a bit more inventive with it. Maybe if it's a film about kind of like running away from your adult responsibilities, that you could, I don't know, make it also about like jobs or money or politics or some of the problems that like non-pop star people had. Like, I think that would maybe make it a bit more relatable and a bit more impactful. But as it stands, like, I did find it quite fun, quite funky, quite charming.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like this. I like how it feels improvised, but it does have these kind of like fun, as you were saying, like these kind of fun formal ideas, you know, like, so this voiceover, which is really wry and funny, you know, as you said, these kind of Godardian or Angus Bardian kind of like blocking block colours and things like that, and then just like the way he shoots Warsaw, like he picks the most boring things to look at, but it just sort of has a beauty to it. I don't know, there's something, yeah, just the way it's put together is really really satisfying to me. Also, I would disagree a bit that the other characters don't stand out, because I feel like I kind of liked how it seems like it's going to be all about Charlie X's character, but then she kind of disappears for a bit, and it does give it the other characters a bit of time to shine. Even Rob, who you think is like a total joke and is like a kind of punchline for most of the film, actually I think does get a little bit of redemption when we go off on his little journey as well. So yeah, I thought this was kind of really well handled. It did make Warsaw look like as beautiful as Paris, and I want to go there. And I like, yeah, I agree. And I wish we could make, because this is like such a small film. Like, it's so simple. It's basically mumblecore, like in terms of just like, it's just people in rooms and parties chatting or walking down the street and talking. That's all it is.
And it's also a beautiful 70-something minutes long.
Exactly.
It's worth seeing.
And yeah, why can't we make films like this in Scotland that are just like, and films that are just not about big subjects apart from relationships? You know, it's just like, that's all it's about. It's about a bunch of people interacting and how they crisscross. So yeah, I thought this was really satisfying. This film is out on Friday. I think we're all recommending it. It's out by Vertigo. It's at the JFT Filmhouse Cameo. Shall we give some ratings for Letterboxd? Who wants to go first?
I would give it 3.5 stars, I think. I did really enjoy it, but I did also like it seemed that there were spaces it could have moved into that it didn't.
Yeah, I would agree. Like a very warm 3.5 stars, but I think 3.5.
Okay, I'm going to give it 4 because I feel like its ambition, it kind of meets its ambition. It's just like a bunch of pals making a really fun movie. So like although it could have been bigger, I don't think it's trying to be bigger.
That's true.
You know, it's like it does feel like they've aimed to make a 71-minute film that's just contemplating life for a weekend. So yeah, I really recommend this. I thought it was great. And yeah, you should go and see it.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have The Fall of Sir Douglas Weatherford. So Peter Mullan stars as Kenneth, who is a tour guide in a fictional Scottish town called Aberloch, who's devoted to preserving the legacy of Aberloch's most famous historical figure, the 18th century inventor, author, adventurer, Sir Douglas Weatherford. But when a new series of a cult fantasy show starts filming in town, Sir Douglas becomes a bit of old news, and Kenneth doesn't take the new situation very well. This is the first feature film from Edinburgh-born filmmaker Sean Dunn, and I believe you didn't manage to see this because of some screen-related disaster.
Yes, I'm now watching screensavers on YouTube, so you guys carry on.
They don't run out after 40 hours. But Ellie, you did manage to see it in the allotted strange time we got for the...
Yeah.
And I think this is quite an unenviable task of reviewing it first, because this is quite a tricky film to explain, I think, because it's tonally not straightforward. What did you make of it?
So I like admired out the gate that this film was kind of tackling big and kind of complex topics. Kind of like how, you know, it's obviously got this criticism of this Game of Thrones type of fantasy show where it's very, very commercialist, very capitalist, very impersonal and quite exploitative. But at the same time, it's not kind of just looking down at that. It's also saying that the history that has inspired this show, that we kind of accept for a very long time as just history as fact is itself a constructed narrative and can also be as like fallible or misrepresented as some TV show can. So like the way that they do that is that the filmmaking does kind of like undercut Douglas Weatherford's legacy as we're being introduced to it, right? So his voiceover is like boasting about his groundbreaking work on lunatics, or like the treatment of lunatics. And I think there's like a quick shot of his plaque and you see these like achievements, like you see like adventure or whatever, but then just under it's like absent father and husband. And there's this scene where like Mullan is explaining to all of the like, tour goers in their little parkas that like there was this confrontation that Sir Douglas Weatherford had with rioting peasants on his land, but instead of having to kill them, he just made a speech that was so good they all agreed to stop rioting. And kind of like the unbelievability of that really kind of hangs over the story from that point on, and there's a much more sinister and a much more murderous version of Sir Douglas Weatherford that kind of comes to him in his dreams. So even though I felt that early on it felt a little bit heavy-handed, like how, this show, it's not Game of Thrones, it's probably meant to be Game of Thrones, but it's like, it's very vapid, its fans are very cringe, the film crew are all really like rude and disruptive and kind of pointlessly rude as well, and the company that Peter Mullan's character works for, where he does these tours, they just seem hell-bent on humiliating him and like putting him in this like great king wizard outfit and making him look like a tit in front of everybody. And I think that film, I think that like allows the film to enter into this kind of like cringe comedy middle part where he kind of like wants to get back at them. It kind of becomes a little bit of a prank war, which is like, a little bit, I think, maybe formulaic, but always kind of entertaining to watch. There's a point where he's like in his little historical get-up as Sir Douglas Weatherford, yelling at a bunch of people dressed as wizards queuing for the TV show. And it's like, wow, this really is nerd-on-nerd violence. It's like the age-old question of like who would win in a fight between a historical reenactor and a LARPer, and it's like neither. They're both dweebs. But I think like Peter Mullan is kind of great in it because like he's very, grumpy old man, very like stormy, very kind of, like serious and stoic and proud, but he's kind of also both put into these quite like funny situations, but immediately there's this kind of vulnerability to him where you see that he's actually quite a tragic character, and he kind of, like Sir Douglas Weatherford, you're kind of encouraged to notice the gaps in his own story very early on. So like he sort of he has his daughter around for dinner who's brought her boyfriend, but he's kind of just asking about her ex, and it kind of doesn't go anywhere, and he kind of just embarrasses himself. And for a guy who is obviously like so obsessed with his family history, his link to Sir Douglas Weatherford and this big family tree that he like reads out to his granddaughter all the time, he never really talks about the person he was married to, who's obviously not there anymore, just not like you can sort of assume that she's passed away, that the grandmother of this wee girl, but for a guy who seems so interested in like the story of his family, he doesn't really consider like the story of his own life, of the relatives close to him as part of that. And I think that all kind of goes unspoken in quite a haunting way. So once you've kind of got that very kind of zany and quite fun and quite silly cringe comedy out of the way, then these elements kind of come together in this big breakdown that he has in the third act, which become a lot more of a psychological thriller. And it's the kind of like, huge montage of all these kind of ghastly images from his dreams. And you've of course got that like perfect shot of him like, burning these relics in a bin fire outside and looking, deeply into them. And I think that it I don't want to give too much away, but it just takes really interesting turns into where it goes, where it ends up, and what it's kind of saying about like what is our legacy and what should we live for. So like really ambitious themes that I do actually feel are handled kind of with the thought that they deserve.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a really kind of off-kilter film, kind of similar to the last one. The tone is like a bit unusual, and it's doing a lot of things. You can maybe argue maybe it does too much because there is a lot going on. There's a lot of ambition, but it starts as this kind of sitcom almost. It's like this kind of like situation comedy where there's this exasperated tour guide who's annoyed that no one cares about this old colonialist that he's obsessed with. But yeah, it gets darker as it goes on. It becomes much more of a satire about the film industry as well, and it does like kind of perfect pastiche of like these kind of small town museums that are just so crap and crummy, and like you can't believe money's devoted to something so boring, but like, but somebody's so passionate and obsessed about it, so that it gets all that really well, and then it goes, I would say, quite Lynchian. It gets like quite dreamlike and surreal. I saw it described. I can't actually remember how it was described exactly, but somebody on Letterboxd said, "Yeah, this is an experimental film for your dad will like," because it's like, it is experimental. There's lots of unusual stuff. It played at Rotterdam, so it is like experimental, but actually the plot is very kind of like Bill Douglas-y, kind of Scottish humour as well. It's like, it is like, David Lynch making Still Game. It's like, that's kind of the vibe of the film, and it's all about like, it's also talking about Scotland's colonial past and how we whitewash things, and this character Douglas Weatherford, he is like, Walter Scott and David Hume and all these people rolled into one, but he's also clearly a terrible person who perhaps murdered some villagers, and experimented on some sort of disabled people. So it's really, it gets quite disturbing, and it's really, it reveals itself to be a film about grief and about getting older, and there's some heartbreaking moments. Like there's a moment where Kenneth decides he's going to surprise his granddaughter, and it's her birthday, and he takes her around a present, and then he gets to the front door and he realises, hold on a minute, there's a party happening and I've not been invited. And that kind of heartbreak of like being an embarrassment to your family, like it's him, he hasn't realised that actually his behaviour and his kind of like increasing strange like obsession with this old figure has like sort of alienated him from like his family and eventually from like most of the town. This film goes to really surprising places, and it is genuinely funny and genuinely quite surprising for a Scottish film to be quite experimental and quite strange, actually. Yeah,
I think Peter Mullan really like grounds it a lot. I think that he is kind of like the most important piece of that, because there's something so like identifiable in him about like Scottish old men, kind of in the way that he sits in his like big chair with his big glasses on, kind of like just sort of like half watching this Game of Thrones thing. Like they film a little bit of the actual show that it's supposed to be. What is it called? It's called like The White Stag of Emberfell, right? Like that, and it's just like this one scene where like, a guy in a crown is like and we keep going back to that. It actually seems, for a guy who is now being made by his boss to like promote this TV show, he keeps watching it, but we just keep seeing the same scene. And again, like that's maybe some kind of commentary about how all of this is like much of a muchness. It's like all the show is just like one big blob. But at the same time, like I do think that there's this very kind of passive consumption of that kind of media from like an older generation, and I think that it really like brings you to question it, and kind of like it ties it into like much more human themes, much more relatable themes. So I do kind of see this being appealing to like lots of different generations who have lots of different like discourse to iron out about not just the TV industry, but also and not just about like Scotland's history of colonialism, but about kind of like our relationship to our families and the strange feeling of like the world passing by without you. Yeah, and then there's the kind of meta thing on top of that of Peter Mullan has actually been in these type of things, because he's obviously in Harry Potter, but he's also in the new Lord of the Rings. He plays like one of the dwarf kings, and that's like just an extra joke on top of it, because you can imagine, even though he does these shows, he never talks about them. He obviously doesn't care about them as much as he cares about his like, hard men, working class Glasgow films that he makes. So that's also very funny. Like I feel like he's probably in on the joke, making fun of like Outlander and things like that coming to Scotland and sort of using Scotland as a backdrop, but actually not making proper films about Scottish life like he makes. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I was really impressed. Again, there's a new filmmaker called Sean Dunn from Edinburgh. I think he lives in New York though. Talented guy. Yeah. I don't know what I would rate it. I'm kind of I think I'll go 3.5 stars, same as Erupcja. I'm going to go 3.5, but quite a high 3.5. I don't think he pulls off everything. Like I say, he does a lot in this film. The ending though is great. I love how it ends, and it's just a really smart film that makes you actually excited for Sean Dunn's next film. Yeah. Not a relation, but it's also fun to have another Dunn in the film industry in Scotland. So one and done. Yep. The Fall of Sir Douglas Weatherford is out on the 12th of June, and there are some preview screens coming up with Sean Dunn. He's going to be at the Film House on the 10th of June. He's also going to be at the DC in Dundee on the 12th of June for Q&As. So go along, ask him some questions. Peter Mullan might turn up, who knows. I believe he did that at the Glasgow
screening, like it showed at Glasgow Film Festival, and he just, like, Peter Mullan just turned up on the night and didn't announce it, and just like gave a really nice Q&A. So I'm not promising anything, but if
You'll
not,
be wearing a crown and you'll have a sword.
Exactly.
You'll be dressed as a wizard.
Okay, for the theme this week, in honour of Erupcja, where Warsaw plays a kind of crucial part in the story, we were looking at films where the city in which it takes place plays a significant role and basically feels like a character in itself. I think that's what the theme is. We kind of like changed that around this morning, but hopefully everyone's on the same page. Who wants to go first on this one?
I can go first.
Sure.
So the city I picked is Venice, and the film I picked is David Lean's Summertime from 1950 something.
59, I would guess, like late 50s.
Was it not like earlier? Was it not 55? Imagine if I look this
I
up.
have 1955.
Oh my god, I love being right.
What's your guess? What's your guess?
I said 59.
Oh.
I'm not prepared, but I am correct. And that's what's important. So yeah, this is the film that David Lean made right before he made Bridge Over the River Kwai, I think. And it stars Katharine Hepburn as a sort of middle-aged, quote-unquote, working girl, which I think means secretary and not the other thing. But I think she calls herself a working girl, like a middle-aged, single, has like dedicated her life to sort of like bureaucratic admin, like making a career for herself in the way that women in the 40s and 50s were able to do. And she goes on this like once in a lifetime trip to Venice, Italy, and you see her like get off the train, and she has like all of her bags and her like camera, and she's like very, like, you can tell that this is kind of the moment that she is gonna encounter this like idea of like beauty and culture and all of these things that like Europe represents to Americans. And then on the first night there, she meets a sexy Italian man, as is the way. And then the rest of the film is kind of about that and about her kind of being in Venice and maybe suddenly feeling these feelings of desire that she hasn't felt for a really long time. I really love this film. I think it's really, really beautiful. It is kind of the perfect Venice film because Venice is such a like weird fucking city. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous, but it's also historically where like the plague happened. Like, it has all of these like weird contradictions in it where it's both incredibly moneyed, incredibly touristed, but also sort of decrepit and falling apart. It's very bougie and there's clearly like a lot of money running through it, but it's also where like historically a lot of like poverty and disease and empire like traveled through, and so it's such a weird little place, and like it's both land and sea, and like a place of like real contradictions, and it forms this very perfect backdrop to this film that is essentially about like loneliness and desire at the same time and how they are like different sides of the coin. Katharine Hepburn is really lovely in it. Like, it's really nice to, I've mostly seen her earlier things of the kind of screwball comedy era, and it's really nice to see her as this kind of like older person that still has so much agency and force and subjectivity on the screen. And there's this really beautiful quote from, I think, David Lean. So this is from Criterion, have a couple of really, really good essays on this film, and there's this one where they quoted him from an interview he did with someone else. He said, and I think he has talked about this as being his favorite film that he made. And he was like, what appealed to me in the idea of summertime? Loneliness. It is a more common emotion than love, but we speak less about it. We are ashamed of it. We think perhaps that shows a deficiency in ourselves. If we were more attractive, more entertaining, and less ordinary, we would not be lonely. And I just think that's really beautiful. I think that's it's such a difficult, like, he's right, it's such a difficult emotion and state of being and state of intimacy to express because it feels like it's so much about absence, in a way that love, there's like this kind of force to it and this tangibility, and you can like verify it through like the relationships and the way that people talk to each other. But to make a film or to make an art, or to make art generally about loneliness, is like really, really difficult. But when it succeeds, it's so well done, because he's right, like, it is such a human and pervasive emotion, and we feel it so much more than we feel kind of like the highs of life, but we're used to the language of the highs of life more than we are kind of the slight like dissatisfying ways it can be. And it just like shows that really well. Venice looks really beautiful in it. It's like the colors are gorgeous. It's back when people knew how to light cinema, and that's really nice. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's really, really special.
This is me having to confess, I have not seen Summertime.
Oh, you guys are really
I've definitely caught bits of it because I used to play on TV quite a bit.
Yes,
I've definitely seen like scenes of like Katharine Hepburn falling in the canals and stuff.
Yes, which then she had a lifelong eye infection from falling into that.
Gross.
Yeah.
So romantic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't actually watched it all the way through, so I need to.
It's really lovely, like really kind of like delicate. One of those very good films that is not very taxing. Like it kind of plays out like a romantic comedy in a lot of ways. Like it's not, you could just sort of put it on a Sunday afternoon. It's not going to take that much energy from you. But the way that it's made and the way that it's written is done with so much care and sensitivity to the human experience that it becomes really, really rich, even though it's not on the surface very demanding, which is my favorite kind of film.
I always feel like I prefer David Lean when he's in small scale as well. I mean, I admire like Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge over Kwai and stuff, but like I prefer his smaller, earlier films. So maybe this is close to that, perhaps.
Perhaps. I'm trying to remember what else he's done. I've definitely seen Brief Encounter.
Yeah.
And he
did like the Great Expectations.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I would say maybe I prefer those two. I've seen Lawrence of Arabia. I think it's both beautiful and nonsensical. I haven't seen Dr. Zhivago, actually. Like those really, really did he do Oliver Twist? Oh, but not the musical.
He didn't do Oliver Twist. That was Carol Reed.
No, he did.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. That is on the music.
But the early one, not the...
Sorry.
Which I was at... sorry, this is completely tangential. I was at Balkanorama on Saturday night, and they started playing... Have you ever been to Balkanorama?
No.
It's like a club night on the Cowgate that is like dedicated to Balkan sort of music. So they'll do like bits of klezmer and bits of like sort of like Swana stuff as well. And it's like a live band and then also a DJ. And there was a point where the band were playing a song and I was like to my friends, like Mika and Lakshmi, I was like, where's the song from? Where's the song from? They were like, we've never heard of the song. Like, I think maybe you're just like quite drunk. And then at a certain point it hit that they were playing a song from the musical Oliver. I was like, I can imagine Fagin singing this. And it worked really well. You have not lived until you've heard Oliver in the club.
Which one?
What was it? Hang on, I'm going to look it up.
Pick a pocket or
No,
two.
It wasn't that, because I think that would have come to mind straight away. What are the songs from Oliver?
Also, you can't put that in
Consider
a club.
Yourself.
No. Wow, maybe. I think it's the one where they first see Fagin. Is that what his name is?
Yeah.
Maybe it is You've Got to Pick Up... Oh, no, was it Reviewing the Situation? Was it that? I'm going to look this up later. I'm really, really bad with music, so I need to like listen to things to be like, yes, it was that.
You could just watch Oliver Twist.
I could just watch, yeah.
And then just whenever the BPM kicks in.
Yeah. Be like, that we
whenever you project back into the club, you know
it's
which song
happening.
it was.
Anyway, that's... he also did there was a 48 version of Oliver Twist. That's how we got onto this.
Ellie.
So interestingly, like the film that I picked does have a little bit of overlap in that same sort of theme of loneliness, but in less of a beautiful way and more of a repugnant, horrible horror way, which is the film I chose was Under the Skin. I don't know if it's just that I'm slightly less well-travelled, but I find the most interesting films about cities are the ones where you know the city better. So this is set in Glasgow, and I actually saw it when I was a teenager, years before I ever moved to Glasgow, and it's very interesting watching them across that kind of like time span. But if you don't know, it's a great premise. Basically, Scarlett Johansson plays this like alien that has taken a human form and is reversing sexual politics by driving around a van and seducing men to her lair to be consumed. And I would say that the second half of the film, when she's away from Glasgow, is where like a lot of that kind of commentary comes in. And again, that sort of theme of loneliness where she gains a bit more of self-awareness and she connects to other kind of like people on the margins, and she very much becomes like a stranger to herself in a way that feels like a very visual depiction of loneliness. But when I think of it, I think of the first half through where it's all told through the windshield of this like white van that she's driving around in. Basically, like it's just ordinary people off the streets of Glasgow who did not know that they were being filmed. It was all done with hidden cameras. And apparently when they were asked afterwards, how did you not recognise Scarlett Johansson, they would just say that they did not expect it to be Scarlett Johansson driving a white van around Glasgow asking for directions, which I find so interesting because I also fully relate to it, where it's like, I could pass Angelina Jolie on the street and I would not look twice because it's like, oh, that person just looks a lot like Angelina Jolie. Like I would never assume that it's the famous person. But as such, like they're able then to not just have these like these great shots of kind of, you know, Glasgow city centre in a very natural way with all the crowds and the noise, but they're able to kind of give a real voice to people in Glasgow. So it's like she asks these kind of like sinister and otherworldly questions quite robotically. She'll like roll the window down and be like, do you think I'm pretty? I'm like, you're dead gorgeous. And it's like she's asking for directions, and they're like, you know that Asda up there? Well, you want to go past Ibrox Stadium, basically. And it's just like, I'm recognising my bus route. Like, I've asked for these directions. I've gotten this guy before. And it's like, it's tremendous how much of the kind of like, I don't know, the feeling of Glasgow really translates through the film this way. There's this one scene where she like is driving through a crowd of football fans after like an Old Firm game is out, and it's like the most terrifying, well, the film is pretty terrifying, but it's one of the more terrifying moments of just like the sea of football fans like just going around the van like around a rock. And it's like, it's exactly that same sense of terror that you get when you get on the subway and then realise that like Ibrox has just let out 100 Rangers fans. It's the exact same feeling. So I feel like there's lots of like little ways that they kind of like do present it, not just as a place, but as a very specific time and a very specific kind of culture. I think that like the radio that she's playing when she's driving around is talking about the upcoming independence referendum. So it like really does take me back to this very specific idea that I had of Glasgow as a teenager when it was this UNESCO City of World Culture. I mean, it still is, right? But like it was just announced then, and it really felt like it was this huge kind of cultural revival that was happening in Glasgow, and that it was kind of like leading the independence, the Yes movement as part of that. So it's like it manages to, while still like viewing it through the eyes of this like alien visitor, give a very human sense of what Glasgow is like, what people talk like, what they talk about. And it's just super effective and fucked up and creepy, and I really, really like it, and I think about it all the time. Whenever we pass by, there's a scene where she like is just walking in like high heels. I can't exactly remember where it is. It's somewhere near Buchanan Street, but she like trips, and then people like go and help her.
I think she's on the Trongate.
And it's the Trongate, and like people like rush over to help her, but she's obviously like a weird alien, so she kind of just like behaves so every time we go under that arcade, we're like, this is where Scarlett Johansson tripped in under the skin. So it's just like really interesting. It's just such an exciting thing to kind of see, not just like the place that you've been reflected in film, but like the very specific culture, the very specific vibe, and a very specific moment that even if you didn't live there, you kind of recognise.
Well, I was thinking the best thing about that film, it makes Glasgow, a city I have spent a lot of time in, look so alien and weird. Like, it's just like, there's something about the way it's filmed that we are seeing it through an alien's eyes, and how strange human beings are, and, you know, just like everybody looks, like you say, these weird customs where we're walking around in weird clothes and smoking cigarettes. And
everyone's like on their phones or drinking Iron Brew, pushing prams around. There's like a very, I don't know, I always really like that. I always really like using science fiction to kind of, I don't know, approach like, what would we look like from the outside? And it's really effective. I
remember I went to the Glasgow Film Festival premiere of this, because I think it was the closing film at Glasgow, and there was a woman stood up and she was so upset, like from like the West End. She says, why have you shown such a bad part of Glasgow? Why is it not in like the nice part? I live in Heinlein, it's beautiful. And it's like, have you not missed the point? It's like,
this is what it's like.
If you're an alien, this would you probably like go hunting in
Glasgow City Centre is like a war zone. It's like horrible.
No, it does look. This is what Glasgow looks like, but I think he does. Why people were shocked by it, and why some people felt uncomfortable. He makes Glasgow look really unpleasant and unfriendly, and I think that's what she was reacting to. But some people don't like it.
But people are like, you still get these little moments where like people go to help her when she falls over, and like, I don't know. I think that there is kind of I think that there is like a real humanity behind it. It's not just kind of like a safari of like, look how ugly everybody in Glasgow is, you know? But like, I do think that there is something kind of weird and electric and kind of exciting about it when, I mean, that's how I felt like moving there, of being like, oh, when you are in Glasgow city centre, like kind of late at night, it's obviously terrifying, but if you're not drunk, you're kind of like, I can just like fly through this place and kind of like stay out of everything. But it's such a strange, it's like Taxi Driver or something like that. It's so gritty, it's so urban. But even then, like, there is like a real, like, I don't know, appreciation. I think that there's a real respect behind the way
I think he really gets Glasgow in the way that some people don't get Glasgow, you know, like he captures it real. My film, well, I think we're running out of time, but my film was going to be End of the Century, the Lucio Castro film, which is set in Barcelona, and it's really good at, it's about a guy from New York who's visiting Barcelona, and it's really good at capturing that feeling of just arriving in a city and like arriving at the Airbnb, and it's just a little bit off, and like it's exciting to be there, but it's also a bit lonely because you're there on your own, and you're a bit bored, but also like, you want to explore, but also you want to go back to your room and like sleep and masturbate and stuff, and that's what he does.
Hell yeah.
But you know, like,
so real.
so it's really good at that. And then the film is also a romance, so it's like the excitement of like meeting someone in a foreign city, but then it turns out he actually met the person before, so it's like really good at mixing that kind of like the idea of the familiar and the strange, and the kind of like the like romance, but also like anonymous. It's a really smart film. And then it does this really audacious thing where it flashes back 20 years to the time these guys first met, when they were both in the closet, and then it plays out like how their life might have turned out had they met at that time, and had they both been out and proud, and had they had a relationship. So it's a really beautiful film, but I think it uses Barcelona, a film that isn't really on cinema that much, apart from that Woody Allen film. I can't really think of too many kind of major films set in Barcelona like that I've seen. But yeah, it's one of the better ones that, you know, it's got lots of great scenes of just eating cheese on the rooftop and like going to the beach. It's one of these great cities that looks amazing. It's got a beach, it's got everything, it's got culture, but it's also got a bit of an edge to it as well. So yeah, that's a film I would recommend. And I think we'll call it a day there. We do have a little bit of housekeeping though. I was going to mention that if you're a fan of this podcast, I'm sure you are, and if you're a fan of Queer Cinema, which I'm sure you are, we are teaming up once again with Queer Cinema Sundays at the end of the month to show Nowhere, and we're going to be following it with a live Q&A. Sorry, not a live Q&A. It's a live Q&A, but also it's going to be a podcast. So that's
is the Q&A Peter asking us cues and us paying them? That's not a Q&A.
Sorry, let me start again. It's a live panel, and we're going to also make that panel a podcast. So that's happening on the 28th of June on a Sunday, because it's Queer Cinema Sundays, and it's going to be happening at 7:20. Really looking forward to that. Nowhere is a crazy film, very fun, very sexy, very bratty, like amazing teen movie. And talking about strange films, I think we're going to have a good chat about that film. Like, I think there's going to be lots of good conversation. So please come along. I don't think it's screened that much as well, so like it's a kind of rare to see on the big screen. Yeah, and we'd love to see you. Say hello.
Yeah. It'll be great.
It'll be fun.
And then before that, we'll have another podcast in 2 weeks. Peter should be back by then, so it'll be a bit more professionally.
Hey,
You did great.
yeah.
Thanks. That's fine.
We don't need him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't come back, Peter. Okay, see you later. Bye.
Bye.